So it's been a while since the last update. I haven't gotten a lot of work done on the car, but I will be starting to take the suspension apart right now. And I've got a chain connected to the frame with some Schedule 8 bolts, and it's around the front load arm, which you can kind of see right there. And then that little indent is where the kingpin sits, and I've got the kingpin out. You can see it right here. That just holds the load arm against the lower control arm. And so now the driver's side suspension pretty much has no load on it, and I can lift it up with my hand on the whole assembly. So I'll be starting to take that apart now. I'm going to start with getting the wheel off, getting the kingpin off and everything, and then I'll move on to the control arms. I'll probably leave the lower control arm on for now, just as a precaution in case the load arm decides to come off the chain, which I'm really hoping it doesn't, and I don't think it will. I've got it bolted up pretty good, but you never can be too careful. So I'll catch you guys up with that when I get some more stuff done. So I just got the tie rod end out after a little bit of persuasion with the hammer. Now I'm gonna disassemble the upper knuckle support pin, and then I'll get the bottom one, and then I will take the steering knuckle off while this is on the table. And then I do have to get the steering knuckle MagnaFlux, and I'll explain a little bit of that later when I have it fully apart on the table. So I'll catch up to you guys when the knuckle support pin is out. So I've just taken the upper knuckle support pin out. It is threaded in the bearing and on the mounts on the side. And there was a bushing in there, but I took it already out before I even started tackling the suspension. So I will be putting fresh new bearings in there. My plan is to take everything off, repaint it, and I've got new bushings for everything. I've even got a new pin for the upper and lower support pins on both sides, because they do tend to wear out in there from all the years of going just up and down, and they're just a little movement. So I'll be tackling the lower support pin now, and then the only thing holding the lower control arm up would be the shock absorber. I do have the lower sway bar disassembled from the frame right now, so that should not be holding the lower support arm in. So once I get that lower knuckle support pin out, I will check back with you guys and show you more of what's going on as I'm disassembling a front suspension for some torsion bars. So check back with you later. So I've just gotten the lower knuckle support pin out, and I've got it set on the table. So here you can see your upper control arm and your lower control arm sitting down. I'll grab this pin really quick. Come over here, mind the mess. So this is the whole wheel hub assembly. You have your steering knuckle right down here, and that goes in and grabs on to where the kingpin is resting there. The kingpin basically gives the principle of turning your car. You can see this is what is connected to the upper and lower control arms. And so when the wheel hub assembly can pivot on this, your car can turn. And so I'm changing out the kingpin because I do not know exactly how worn out that is. And I also have to get the support or steering knuckle MagnaFlux. And what that does, it checks for minute cracks in the steel. And the problem with Packard steering knuckles is they have flat surfaces on them. You can kind of see them, and they invite cracks really well. And so if you have a minute crack in there, and if you have a crack, it'll grow and grow until one day you're going down the road and it will break off essentially. And so that either means you're going into the ditch or you're going into oncoming traffic. And it's a matter of a safety thing where I don't want to take the chance of having a steering knuckle break on me. So I'm gonna go in and get this whole thing MagnaFlux, the steering knuckle that is. And if it comes out bad, I'm just gonna replace both of them, not get the second one MagnaFlux. But if it comes back good without any cracks, then I'll reuse it and see where I go from there with the second one. But the whole reason behind doing the front suspension is the bushings were really cracked, and I can show you how bad they were. I'll just turn that down. You can see right in there how just ugly those things are, and they're not really working that well anymore. And like I said before, the steering knuckle, it's just a matter of safety. I want to enjoy this car and cruise down the road in it. And if I can't have peace of mind that I'm going to be safe when I come home, I really don't want to be driving it. So I'm going to go ahead and take the upper control arm off, and then see what the bushings actually look like on the table. So I'll catch up with you guys when I get that done. All right, now I've got the upper control arm off, and where it mounts, it's not bolted, or I mean, it is bolted, but it doesn't have threads. The threads are actually in the frame on the shock tower. You can see there where I just left the bolts for now. So right now I'm gonna go ahead and start disassembling the kingpin assembly from the steering knuckle. These bolts look really greasy. That could either be a good thing or a bad thing for them coming out. So we'll see. I'll catch you guys up when there's more action going on. So far tonight, I've got 2 bolts of the support plate here taken off. I'm gonna come back at those in the morning. They're a little bit more stuck than I'd want. You can see back here. Got to take those off to take the backing plate to the drum brakes off so I can get the spindle off. And then once the spindle's off, I can drive out the kingpin, separate the steering knuckle from the assembly. And really, once that's done, I can start sanding down a lot of these parts after I take out the bushings of the control arm, upper control arm right there. You can see. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to get a bushing press to get those out. Those seem pretty stuck in there, which is normal for control arm bushings. They usually need to be driven out by a bushing press and then put back in with one. But really, once these 2 pieces are out and then those bushings off, I can start sanding my pieces to paint. I still have to take the lower control arm off. The stabilizer / sway bar is just sitting there really. I can take that off anytime I want. So once I get the lower control arm off and all this done, I can start sanding my pieces. I am pretty much ready to paint the frame here. I do have to do a little bit more cleaning up since I've been working on it. Just get the loose stuff off, then sand it down a little bit more. I'm gonna paint as much as I can here, and then I'll probably have to put the assembly back on once that's done, and then paint the rest. So everything that's getting painted is the control arms, the backing plate, spindle, all the outers here that you can see. Pretty much any bare metal I want to protect so it doesn't rust in the future. So that's where I've gotten tonight. It's getting pretty late, so I think I'll get back at it in the morning and I'll catch you guys up then. So it's the next day and I have the support arm, spindle, kingpin, and steering knuckle off of the support plate for the drum brakes. And I had to clean them off with some gasoline because they were really gunky and greasy. And I mean, the gasoline did a really good job. You can see the shine on some bare metal coming through, and that was just caked in grease. But I do have to go get a piece of round stock because you can see here, that's the locking pin for the kingpin to stay in place. And I can't drive it out with any of the punches that I have here. They're either too big or too small, so I have to go get a piece of round stock, which isn't a big deal. And then I'm going to get that magnafluxed, and we'll carry on from there, and then I'll show you still what's on the table as we leave the weekend here. Here's another example of just how greasy the parts are. That's a spacer for the bolts, and you can see the metal on them, and that's just grease on the outside. That was pretty much the whole assembly, which I had to clean off with gasoline. You can just see how gunked on it was. And it really didn't take that long with the gasoline. It really cut through it well. So I'm pretty happy with the results on the other pieces of the assembly. So I have pretty much everything disassembled. You can see here the control arm. I do have to go get a bushing press, which I can go get from O'Reilly's or something, to press the bushings out. You can see right here just how gunked up they are, and they're gonna be really frozen in place. So I'm gonna hit that with some penetrant oil over the next week, hopefully to break it free. Here's the backing plate. I am gonna clean this up and spray paint it a little bit to protective coating, even though it's probably gonna wear off in a few years maybe, but it'll at least protect it from rusting. And then back to the car, I just have a little bit more to do. We're cleaning up the frame. I gotta take the lower control arm off and do the same with the bushing press. Replace the tie rod, and then I have all new bushings for the sway bar assembly. There's 4 total. 2 for 2 frame mounts, and then 2 for each control, or 1 for each control arm mount. But other than that, I mean, most of the stuff I can just carry on just sanding and then prepping for paint while I wait for the steering knuckle to be magnafluxed, and me to get some round stock to disassemble everything completely apart. So that's where I'm gonna leave it this weekend with everything disassembled. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks I'll have another video out where I'm actually starting to paint some of the parts and getting them back on the car, and I'll see you guys then.